Jack Miller was just an ordinary mechanic from Iowa, who had somehow ended up as the maintenance specialist aboard the interstellar research vessel Horizon. The ship was part of humanity's first diplomatic mission to the Galactic Conclave, a coalition of 17 spacefaring species who had been watching Earth for decades with a mixture of fascination and horror. Jack often wondered how he got here. Just 6 months ago, he was fixing farm equipment and the occasional car in his small hometown garage. Then the government recruiters came, looking for people with practical skills for humanity's first major push into the stars. They needed people who could keep things running when they were millions of miles from the nearest spare part. Jack had always been good at making broken things work again. "You have hands that understand machines," his grandfather used to say. Now those hands were maintaining oxygen recyclers and gravity stabilizers on a ship traveling faster than light. The Horizon slowed as it approached the massive ring-shaped station that served as the Conclave's diplomatic hub. Jack stood at the observation window, watching as the silver structure grew larger against the backdrop of a blue-green gas giant. Sweat dampened his uniform despite the ship's climate control. Humans had only learned they weren't alone in the universe 15 years ago. Now they were joining the galactic community. "Nervous?" asked a voice beside him. Jack turned to see Lieutenant Diane Perry, the mission's xenobiologist. She was tall and lean, with dark skin and a perpetual look of curiosity on her face. "A little," Jack admitted. "You?" "Terrified," Diane said with a smile. "But excited too. Do you know why they call Earth a death world?" Jack nodded. The briefings had covered this extensively. Gravity's too strong, oxygen's too high, temperature swings too wide, and everything's trying to eat everything else. Exactly. To most species out there, we're practically superhuman. We evolved on a planet that would kill most of them in minutes. Diane's expression turned serious. "Which means they're afraid of us, Jack. We need to be careful." The ship shuddered slightly as docking clamps engaged. Captain Susan Allen's voice came over the intercom. "All personnel, prepare for artificial gravity adjustment and atmospheric normalization. We will match conclave standard conditions in 30 minutes. Diplomatic team, assemble in the conference room for final briefing." Diane gave Jack's shoulder a squeeze. "See you on the other side, mechanic." 3 hours later, Jack walked through the docking tube and onto the conclave station, for the first time. The difference was immediate. Each step felt too light, as if he might float away if he pushed too hard. The air was thinner too, making him take deeper breaths. But it was the aliens that really drove home how far from Earth he was. They came, in all shapes and sizes. Some had 4 arms, others moved on clusters of tentacles. A group of beings that looked like upright lizards stared at the human delegation with vertical pupiled eyes. Translucent creatures floated past in what appeared to be personal hovering water tanks. Jack tried not to stare, but it was impossible. Small being with pale blue skin and large faceted eyes approached Captain Allen. It wore an ornate harness studded with blinking lights and small speakers. "Welcome to Alara Station," the alien said, its words translated by the harness. "I am Ambassador Zilrit of the Tresson Confederation. On behalf of the Conclave, we extend greetings to Earth's representatives." Captain Allen bowed slightly. "Thank you, Ambassador. We are honored by your welcome and look forward to peaceful relations between Earth and the Conclave." Jack hung back with the rest of the support crew as the formal introductions continued. His job was to maintain the equipment, not talk to aliens. Still, he couldn't help noticing how many of the station's occupants were giving the humans a wide berth, or how their body language, at least among those with recognizable bodies, showed signs of tension. The delegation was led to a large, circular chamber where representatives from the 17 conclave species waited. Light streamed in from a transparent dome overhead, catching on elaborate decorations and what appeared to be living art forms that shifted and changed colors continuously. The formal welcome ceremony began. Jack noticed something unusual in the corner of the grand hall. A hovering crystalline object about the size of a beach ball was emitting small arcs of blue-white energy. The pulses seemed random and erratic. None of the aliens approached it, though several cast concerned glances in its direction. Jack nudged Diane, who was standing next to him. "What's that?" he whispered, nodding toward the object. Diane's eyes widened. That's an Archon, she whispered back. Some kind of ancient AI guardian. The Conclave representatives mentioned them during our briefings. They're supposedly millions of years old, left behind by a precursor civilization. They help maintain balance in the Conclave by serving as impartial mediators and protectors. But I've never seen one acting like that before. Jack studied the troubled machine with growing interest. The erratic energy pulses reminded him of a faulty power regulator he'd once fixed on his cousin's tractor. It looks like it's got some kind of power regulation issue, he said quietly. I wonder if I could... Don't even think about it, Diane hissed, grabbing his arm. We're here as guests. We can't just go tinkering with their ancient technology. Jackie nodded, but he couldn't take his eyes off the struggling machine. Something in him, the mechanic's instinct that had guided his hands since childhood, told him he could help. The welcome ceremony continued with long speeches from various ambassadors. The humans were introduced one by one, with Captain Allen saying a few words about each member of the delegation. When Jack's name was called, he stepped forward awkwardly, aware of the many alien eyes studying him. Jack Miller serves as our primary maintenance specialist, Captain Allen explained. On Earth, he was known for his ability to repair complex machinery with limited resources. A murmur went through the assembled aliens. One tall, insect-like being leaned forward. The Deathworlder repairs things? It asked through its translator, mandibles clicking rapidly. We assumed your kind were primarily warriors. Captain Allen smiled diplomatically. Humans have many skills. Jack's talents lie in fixing broken systems, not breaking them. Jack stepped back, feeling his face grow warm with embarrassment. As the ceremony wore on, he found his attention drawn repeatedly to the malfunctioning Archon. Its energy pulses were growing more erratic, and now he could hear a faint, discordant tone emanating from it. Something was definitely wrong with the ancient machine. And despite Diane's warning, Jack couldn't shake the feeling that he was meant to help it. As the humans were finally led to their quarters, Jack took one last look at the struggling Archon. I'll come back for you, he thought. Whatever you are, you shouldn't have to suffer like that. He didn't know it then, but that simple thought, that instinct to help a machine in distress, would soon change humanity's place in the galaxy forever. 3 days into the diplomatic mission, tensions were high. The Conclave representatives remained wary of the humans, keeping their distance during meetings and speaking in hushed tones when they thought no one was listening. Captain Susan Allen was doing her best to reassure them, but progress was slow. Jack had spent most of his time alone in the Horizons workshop, feeling out of place among the diplomats and scientists. The station's reduced gravity and thinner air gave him headaches, and he found it easier to focus on familiar tasks. He had been organizing his tools when a soft knock came at the door. Come in, Jack called. Diane Perry entered, looking tired. How's it going, mechanic? Jack shrugged. Fine, just making sure everything's ready in case something breaks. He gestured to his neatly arranged toolkit. How are the talks going? Diane sighed and sat on a nearby stool. Not great. They're still treating us like we might snap and go, on a rampage at any moment. One of the Vosian delegates actually asked Captain Allen if we were keeping you sedated to control your Deathworld aggression. Me? Jack laughed. I've never even been in a fistfight. They don't understand us, Diane said. They evolved on worlds with less gravity, less oxygen, fewer predators. To them, we're like something out of a horror movie. Creatures that can run for hours without stopping, lift several times our body weight, and survive injuries that would kill most species. Jack thought about this for a moment. Have they asked what we think of them? What do you mean? Well, Jack said slowly, they're just as alien to us as we are to them. Some of them breathe different air, see different colors, live longer lives. But we're not afraid of them. Diane smiled. Maybe you should join the diplomatic team. Jack shook his head. I'm better with machines than with people. Speaking of which, he hesitated, then asked, that Archon thing at the welcome ceremony, is it still malfunctioning? Diane's smile faded. You're still thinking about that? Jack, Captain Allen gave strict orders. We're not to interfere with any conclave technology without explicit permission. I know, but it seemed like it was in pain. It's a machine. So? Machines can suffer in their own way, Jack said. When something isn't working right, when it's straining to do what it was made to do but can't, that's a kind of suffering. Diane studied him for a moment. You're serious, aren't you? Jack nodded. I just want to look at it. Maybe there's something simple that needs fixing. The Archons are supposedly millions of years old, created by a civilization advanced enough to travel between galaxies. What makes you think you can fix what the Conclave can't? Jack smiled. Sometimes fresh eyes see things differently. Diane shook her head but couldn't help smiling back. You're impossible. Just promise me you won't touch it without permission, okay? I promise I'll be careful, Jack said, which wasn't quite the same thing. That evening, after most of the diplomatic meetings had ended, Jack took a walk through the less populated sections of the station. He told himself he was just exploring, getting used to the station's layout. But his feet seemed to know where they were going. He found the malfunctioning Archon in a quiet corridor near the station's central core. Here, away from the busy diplomatic areas, the crystalline entity hovered alone, still emitting those troubling pulses of energy. Up close, it was even more beautiful, and more clearly damaged. The crystalline structure was roughly spherical, about the size of a beach ball, with intricate patterns etched across its surface. In places, the patterns glowed with soft blue light. But other sections remained dark, and the energy pulses that shot across its surface seemed random and chaotic. Jack stood watching it for several minutes, making sure no one else was around. Then he approached slowly, hands open at his sides. Hey there, he said softly. You're not doing so well, are you? The Archon's surface flickered with blue-white energy. A melodic voice emanated from it, distorted by static. System degradation, 73%. Primary functions compromised. Jack felt a thrill run through him. It had responded. He knelt beside the hovering crystal, careful not to touch it. I'm Jack. I fix things. Can I help you? The Archon rotated slowly, as if scanning him. Human. Deathworlder. Unauthorized. Access. Prohibited. I understand, Jack said, settling cross-legged on the floor. But you're suffering. Where I come from, we don't leave anyone suffering if we can help it, even if they're different from us. For several minutes, the Archon remained silent, its energy pulses growing more erratic. Finally, it spoke again. Diagnostic interface activating. A holographic display appeared above the Archon, showing complex schematics and symbols Jack couldn't read. But the underlying principles, power flow, circuit pathways, feedback loops, those were familiar regardless of the technology. Okay, Jack murmured. Let's see what we're working with here. The holographic display shifted as Jack studied it, zooming in on different sections as if responding to his focus. He began to understand the Archon's problem. Its power regulation system had been damaged, causing energy to flow unevenly through its crystalline matrix. You've got energy flowing where it shouldn't, Jack said, pointing to a particular section of the display. And not enough reaching these parts. It's like trying to run a car with half the spark plugs misfiring. Accurate assessment, the Archon replied, its voice slightly clearer now. Self-repair, functions, compromised, external, assistance, required. Jack nodded. I'd need some way to interface with your systems. Do you have something that could translate between your technology and mine? He patted the basic toolkit he always carried in his pocket. The Archon's form shimmered, and a small section of the crystal detached itself, floating toward Jack. It was about the size of a playing card, thin and translucent. Interface, module, the Archon explained, compatible with primitive tools. Jack couldn't help smiling at primitive. Thanks for dumbing it down for me. He carefully took the crystal shard and examined it. One edge had small metallic contacts that looked like they might connect with his diagnostic scanner. He pulled the scanner from his toolkit and studied how they might fit together. As he worked, he became aware of a soft humming sound. Looking up, he saw two alien station crew members watching from a distance, their large eyes wide with what looked like alarm. "It's okay," Jack called to them. "I'm just trying to help." The aliens conferred quickly in their own language, then one hurried away while the other continued to watch from a safe distance. Jack knew he might be creating a diplomatic incident, but he couldn't stop now. The Archon's condition was worsening. He could see it in the increasingly erratic energy patterns across its surface. "I think they've gone to report me," Jack told the Archon. "We might not have much time." "Proceed," the Archon said. "This unit values function over protocol." Jack grinned. "I think we're going to get along just fine." He managed to connect his scanner to the crystal interface. His small screen immediately filled with scrolling data in an alien format, then slowly resolved into something he could understand. The Archon was translating for him, creating a bridge between their technologies. "I can see the problem now," Jack said, excitement building. "Your power distribution matrix is misaligned after that solar storm you mentioned. The energy isn't flowing properly through your crystal structure." "Correct," the Archon responded. "Repair protocol exists, but implementation impossible without functional manipulator fields." Jack understood. The Archon knew how to fix itself, but couldn't physically make the repairs. "You need hands," he said simply. "Affirmative." Jack took a deep breath. "Then let's get started before the diplomats show up and stop us." As he reached toward the Archon with his scanner, ready to begin the delicate work of repairing an ancient alien machine, Jack had no idea that his actions were being observed remotely by several Conclave members, or that what he was about to do would change how the entire galaxy viewed humanity. Jack's hands moved carefully as he worked with the Archon's systems. The holographic display guided him, showing where energy pathways needed to be realigned. With his scanner connected to the crystal interface, he could send small pulses of energy to specific points in the Archon's structure. "I need to redirect power through this section," Jack explained, pointing to an area of the display. "But I have to be careful not to overload the damaged pathways." "Correct," the Archon replied. Its voice was stronger now, though still disrupted by occasional bursts of static. "Warning. Procedure will expose human tissue to radiation." Jack paused. "How bad are we talking?" "Not immediately lethal. However, cumulative exposure may cause cellular damage. In other words, it would hurt him." Jack took a deep breath. "Let's do it anyway. I've come this far." He adjusted his scanner settings and began the delicate process of channeling energy through the Archon's damaged systems. The first surge of radiation made his fingers tingle painfully, but he kept working. Energy flow increased by 12%, the Archon reported. "Continue." Jack wiped sweat from his forehead with his sleeve and repositioned his hands. Each adjustment sent more radiation through his fingers, making them burn and ache. But he could see the improvement in the Archon's energy patterns. The chaotic pulses were becoming more regular. "You're looking better already," Jack said through gritted teeth. "Your biological systems are showing signs of stress," the Archon observed. "You should rest." Jack shook his head. "We keep going. I don't know how much time we have before someone tries to stop us." As if on cue, he heard footsteps approaching rapidly from down the corridor. Jack worked faster, ignoring the growing pain in his hands. "Jack Miller, what do you think you're doing?" He recognized Captain Allen's voice but didn't look up. "Almost there," he muttered, making one final adjustment. "Step away from that Archon immediately." The captain's voice was sharp with authority and fear. "That's an order," Jack completed the last energy pathway realignment and sat back on his heels, finally looking up. Captain Allen stood a few meters away, her face pale with anger. Behind her were several conclave representatives, including the blue-skinned Ambassador Zilrit and a tall, willowy alien with iridescent skin that Jack hadn't met before. "Sorry, Captain," Jack said, holding up his reddened hands. "But I had to. Help." The Archon's crystalline form suddenly pulsed with bright blue light. The erratic energy discharges disappeared, replaced by a smooth, rhythmic glow that spread evenly across its surface. "System restoration in progress," the Archon announced, its voice now clear and melodious. "Power regulation restored to optimal parameters. Self-repair functionality reinstated." The alien with iridescent skin stepped forward, its large eyes fixed on the Archon. "Impossible," it said, the translator making its voice sound thin and high. "The damage was beyond repair. Our most skilled technicians examined it." "Jack is good with his hands," Captain Allen said weakly, looking back and forth between the repaired Archon and her mechanic. The Archon rotated slowly, its glow brightening. Human Jack Miller identified the primary issue and provided physical assistance where my own capabilities were limited. His understanding of basic mechanical principles transcended the differences in our technologies. Ambassador Zilrit's faceted eyes blinked rapidly. "The human touched you, directly interfaced with systems of the precursors?" "Affirmative," the Archon replied. "His actions were taken without hesitation, despite warnings of personal risk." All eyes turned to Jack, who was trying not to show how much his hands hurt. The radiation burns were getting worse, spreading up his wrists. "He needs medical attention," Captain Allen said, moving to Jack's side. "Those are radiation burns." The willowy alien stepped closer, studying Jack with what seemed like fascination. "You knew the repair would harm you?" Jack nodded. "The Archon warned me, but it needed help." "Why?" the alien asked. "Why would you risk injury to repair a machine that is not yours, that belongs to species who are not your allies?" Jack frowned, confused by the question. "Because it was suffering. It asked for help. Where I come from, that's enough." The aliens exchanged glances, their body language impossible for Jack to interpret. "I am Ambassador Trelk of the Vosian Collective," the willowy alien said finally. "In 300 years of serving on the Conclave, I have never witnessed such an action." Captain Allen helped Jack to his feet, supporting him as he swayed slightly. "I apologize for my crew member's unauthorized interference, Ambassador. I assure you he will be disciplined appropriately." "That would be unwise," the Archon interrupted. Its melodic voice seemed to fill the corridor. "This human has demonstrated a quality rare in the galaxy." The crystal entity floated closer to Jack. "For 3 centuries, I have been slowly failing. None in the Conclave attempted repairs, fearing to damage what they did not understand. Yet, this human risked his own well-being to ease my suffering." Ambassador Zilrit stepped forward nervously. "Honored Archon, we did not know how to help you. Your systems are beyond our comprehension." "They were not beyond his," the Archon replied simply. "He saw not an alien artifact, but a being in need." Jack's vision was starting to blur around the edges. The pain in his hands had become a distant throb, which he knew wasn't a good sign. "Captain," he whispered, "I don't feel so good." Captain Allen tightened her grip on him. "He needs treatment now. We need to get him back to the horizon." "No," Ambassador Trelk said sharply. "Your medical facilities are not equipped for radiation poisoning of this nature." The Vosian turned to one of the station crew members. "Take him to the medical bay immediately. Alert Chief Physician Nara that we have a priority case." As Jack was led away, supported between Captain Allen and one of the station crew, he heard the Archon say one last thing to the assembled aliens. "Watch closely how swiftly they move to help their injured. The humans understand something that many of you have forgotten. Compassion is not a weakness. It is the foundation of true strength." In the station's advanced medical bay, Jack lay on a treatment bed as cool blue light bathed his injured hands. The pain had subsided, replaced by a pleasant numbness. "Captain." Allen stood beside him, her earlier anger replaced by concern, And something else. Respect, maybe. That was incredibly stupid, she said quietly. You violated direct orders, created a diplomatic incident, and nearly got yourself killed. Yes, ma'am, Jack agreed. Sorry about that. The Archon has been speaking with the Conclave leadership for the past hour, she continued. About you. Jack blinked in surprise. Me? Why? Apparently what you did was unprecedented. The Archons are revered throughout the Conclave. They're ancient and powerful, and until today no one had ever been able to repair one. Jack tried to sit up but found he couldn't. The medical bed was using some kind of field to keep him still during treatment. I just did what needed doing, anyone would have. Captain Allen shook her head. That's where you're wrong, Miller. No one else did. Not in 300 years. She looked at his bandaged hands. Get some rest. Something tells me tomorrow is going to be a very interesting day for human conclave relations. As Captain Allen left, Jack stared up at the ceiling, wondering what he had started by following his simple instinct to help a machine in distress. Jack awoke to the sound of voices speaking softly nearby. He kept his eyes closed, trying to figure out where he was. The medical bay, he remembered. His hands felt strange, warm and tingling, but no longer painful. The cellular regeneration is nearly complete, said a voice he didn't recognize, probably one of the alien doctors. Remarkable recovery rate. Their biology is extraordinarily resilient. Another Deathworld trait, came Diane's voice. We heal quickly compared to most species. Jack opened his eyes. He was still on the treatment bed, but the blue light was gone. Looking down, he saw his hands were covered in a thin, transparent film that seemed to shimmer slightly. He's awake, Diane said, moving to his side. How do you feel, hero? Confused, Jack replied honestly. And thirsty. A tall, thin alien approached, presumably the doctor. Its skin was a pale green and it had 4 arms, each ending in 3 long fingers. Water has been prepared with minerals suitable for human consumption, it said, passing him a container with one of its lower hands. Jack sat up carefully and took the container. His hands worked normally, though they still tingled. Thank you, he said before drinking. The water tasted slightly sweet. The healing film can be removed now, the doctor said. It has completed its work. Jack held out his hands and the doctor carefully peeled away the transparent material. Underneath, his skin looked perfectly normal. No burns, no scars, not even redness. That's amazing, Jack said, flexing his fingers. On Earth, radiation, burns like that would take weeks to heal. The doctor made a gesture that might have been the equivalent of a shrug. The Conclave has encountered many forms of radiation injury. Treatment protocols are well established. Your unique physiology merely accelerated the process. Diane smiled. What the doctor isn't saying is that they're all very impressed with you, Jack. Word has spread throughout the station about what you did. Jack shook his head. I just fixed a broken machine. It's my job. It is far more than that, said a new voice. A melodic, resonant voice that Jack immediately recognized. The Archon floated into the medical bay, its crystalline form now glowing with vibrant, healthy light. The patterns etched into its surface pulsed gently with blue energy. The doctor immediately straightened and made a complex gesture with all 4 hands. Honored Archon, the patient has only just... Please continue your duties, Physician Nara, the Archon interrupted gently. I merely wish to speak with Jack Miller. The doctor bowed slightly and moved away. Diane squeezed Jack's shoulder. I'll be nearby if you need anything, she said before following the doctor. Jack found himself alone with the Archon. He noticed that its hovering seemed smoother now, more controlled. You're looking better, he said. Thanks to you, the Archon replied. My systems are now operating at 97% efficiency and continuing to improve as self-repair functions complete their work. I'm glad I could help, Jack said simply. The Archon moved closer. Your action has caused significant discussion among the Conclave representatives. Jack winced. Am I in trouble? Quite the opposite. Your behavior has forced many to reconsider their assumptions about humans. Before Jack could ask what that meant, the medical bay doors slid open. Captain Allen entered, followed by Ambassador Trelk and several other alien representatives. Jack tried to stand, feeling he should show respect, but Captain Allen motioned for him to remain seated. "How are you feeling, Miller?" she asked. "Fine, Captain, good as new." He held up his healed hands. Ambassador Trelk stepped forward, towering over Jack with its willowy frame. "The Archon has spoken at length about your actions, human Jack. We have many questions." Jack glanced at Captain Allen, who nodded slightly. "I'll answer if I can," he said. "When you approached the Archon, you knew it was malfunctioning?" "Yes. I could see the energy patterns were wrong. And you believed you could repair it, despite having no knowledge of its technology?" Jack shook his head. "I didn't know if I could fix it, I just knew I wanted to try." The ambassador's iridescent skin shimmered as it tilted its head. "Even when you learned the attempt would cause you physical harm?" "The radiation wasn't going to kill me," Jack said, "and the Archon needed help." "This is what we do not understand," said another alien, a short, stocky being with rough bark-like skin. "You risked injury to assist a machine that is not yours, from a civilization not your own." Jack looked around at the aliens, then at Captain Allen, who seemed as interested in his answer as they were. "Where I come from, on Earth, if someone needs help, you help them. It doesn't matter who they are." "But the Archon is not a person," the bark-skinned alien insisted. "It is a machine." "Does that matter?" Jack asked. "It was in pain. It asked for help. That's enough." The aliens exchanged glances, their expressions unreadable to Jack. Ambassador Trelk spoke again. "In the 3 centuries since the Archon began to malfunction, no species in the Conclave attempted what you did. Some feared damaging it further. Others believed it was not their responsibility. Many simply did not care enough to try. That's..." Jack trailed off, searching for words. "That's sad." "Yes," the Archon agreed, floating to Jack's side. "It is, and it reveals something important about humans that our observations had not shown us." Captain Allen stepped forward. "Ambassador Trelk has informed me that the Conclave leadership wishes to hold a formal assembly tomorrow. Apparently, this is a rare event." "Very rare," Trelk confirmed. "The full assembly is called only for matters that affect all member species. The Archons have requested it." Jack looked at the crystalline entity beside him. "Because I fixed you?" "Because you demonstrated a truth that the Conclave needs to understand," the Archon replied. "Your species has been judged primarily by your physical capabilities, your strength, your endurance, your ability to survive conditions that would kill others. You have been feared because of these things." The Archon's glow pulsed gently. "But these are not what make humans remarkable. What makes you remarkable is that you saw a being in distress, even one utterly alien to you, and your first instinct was to help, regardless of risk or reward." Ambassador Trelk's willowy form seemed to bend slightly, almost like a bow. "The Archons have existed since before any current species achieved space travel. Their wisdom guides the Conclave. If they believe humanity has been misjudged, we must listen." Jack felt uncomfortable with all the attention. "I'm just a mechanic," he said. "I fix things that are broken. That's all." "No," the Archon said, its melodic voice somehow warm despite coming from a crystal. "That is not all. Tomorrow, the Conclave will learn what I have learned, that there is more to strength than the ability to survive hardship. True strength lies in the choice to ease the suffering of others." As the aliens filed out of the medical bay, Captain Allen stayed behind. She looked at Jack with an expression he couldn't quite read. Pride, confusion, maybe a bit of awe. "Whatever happens tomorrow, Miller," she said quietly. "You've changed everything." Jack looked down at his healed hands, then at the gently glowing Archon that hovered nearby. He couldn't help feeling that something larger than him was now in motion, something that would reshape humanity's place among the stars. "I just did what anyone would have done," he said. "That's where you're wrong," the Archon replied. "And that is why tomorrow will astonish the galaxy. The next day, Jack stood with the rest of the human delegation in the center of the largest chamber he had ever seen. The conclave assembly hall was a vast, circular space with rising tiers of seating that could hold thousands. Today, every seat was filled with representatives from all 17 member species of the Galactic Conclave. Jack tugged uncomfortably at the formal uniform Captain Allen had insisted he wear. He was used to coveralls stained with engine grease, not stiff collars, and polished buttons. "Stop fidgeting," Diane whispered beside him. "Everyone is watching." She wasn't exaggerating. Thousands of alien eyes were fixed on the small group of humans standing in the center of the chamber. Jack had never felt so exposed in his life. Captain Allen stood tall at the front of their group, her face composed and diplomatic, but Jack could see the tension in her shoulders. None of them knew exactly what was about to happen. A soft chime sounded, and the murmur of alien voices fell silent. A circular section of the floor at the very center of the chamber began to glow with soft blue light. "The Archons approach," announced a voice over the chamber's communication system. "The assembly will observe proper respect." As one, the thousands of aliens rose to their feet. Jack and the other humans quickly followed suit. 7 crystalline forms floated into the chamber, each glowing with a different colored light. Jack immediately recognized the blue glow of his Archon, the one he had repaired. The other 6 were similar in shape, but varied slightly in size and in the patterns etched into their surfaces. Together they formed a circle in the glowing area at the center of the chamber. Ambassador Trelk stepped forward from the front row of seats. "Honored Archons, the full assembly of the Galactic Conclave has gathered as requested. We await your wisdom." The blue Archon floated slightly forward. "For 10,000 years we have guided the Conclave," it announced, its melodic voice somehow carrying to every corner of the vast chamber. "We have mediated disputes, preserved knowledge, and protected member species from external threats. Today we must share an important decision." A hush fell over the assembly. "Humanity has been judged," the Archon continued. "Not by their strength, which is considerable, not by their technology, which is primitive, not by their history, which is violent, but by the actions of one representative who showed compassion where none was required." The Archon's form expanded slightly, projecting a holographic image into the air. Jack was startled to see himself, working intently to repair the Archon's systems, his face tight with concentration and pain as radiation burned his hands. "I have shared this experience with my kindred," the Archon said, "and we have reached consensus." One by one, the 7 Archons moved to surround the human delegation. Their crystalline forms rotated in complex patterns, creating a woven lattice of multicolored light above the astonished humans. The species known as humans are hereby recognized not as Deathworlders to be feared, but as guardians to be welcomed. Their capacity for endurance is matched by their capacity for compassion. Their strength is guided by empathy. Ambassador Trelk stepped forward, clearly shocked. "Honored Archons, this is unprecedented. No species has ever been granted guardian status without centuries of evaluation. No species has ever repaired an Archon," came the simple reply. "We have existed for millennia, observing and guiding. Yet when I was failing, it was a human who saw not an alien mechanism, but a being in need." The blue Archon floated directly to Jack, who stood with wide eyes and parted lips. "Jack Miller of Earth, you approached me with respect when I was vulnerable. You risked your health to ease my suffering. You expected nothing in return." The Archon's voice seemed to soften. "Among your people, you are considered ordinary. Among the stars, you have demonstrated the extraordinary potential of your kind." The Archon extended a tendril of pure blue energy toward Jack. Where it touched his chest, he felt a pleasant warmth spread through him. "The Conclave fears what they do not understand," the Archon said, addressing all present. They saw humans as dangerous because of their physical capabilities. They did not see what I have seen, that the true measure of a species is not in their capacity to destroy, but in their willingness to repair, not in their ability to survive, but in their choice to help others survive. The chamber was completely silent. Jack could hear his own heartbeat in his ears. "I'm just a mechanic," he said softly. "Anyone would have done the same." "No," the Archon replied. "They would not. That is why your species will change the Conclave forever. That is why you astonish us." Around them, the other Archons began to resonate in harmony, creating a sound like nothing the humans had ever heard, a complex, beautiful melody that seemed to fill not just the chamber, but their very minds. "This is the song of recognition," Trelk whispered, awe evident in the alien's voice. "It has not been heard in 5,000 years." As the song continued, representatives from each conclave species began to approach the humans. There was no more fear in their movements, no more suspicion in their postures. Whatever the Archon's song was communicating, it was changing everything. A small alien child, belonging to a species Jack didn't recognize, broke away from its parent and ran directly to him. It looked up with large, curious eyes and held out a small hand. Without thinking, Jack knelt and gently took the tiny hand in his. "Guardian," the child said in its own language, the translation coming through the chamber's systems. "Teach us to fix things too." Captain Allen stepped to Jack's side, her diplomatic composure momentarily broken by wonder. "Miller," she said, quietly. "Do you understand what's happening here?" Jack looked around at the chamber full of aliens, now approaching the humans with curiosity instead of fear, at the Archons still singing their ancient song of recognition, at the small alien child whose hand he still held gently in his own. "I think," he said slowly, "that we just showed them something they needed to see." "And what's that?" Jack smiled. "That being strong doesn't mean you can't also be kind. That sometimes the most important thing you can do with your hands isn't to build weapons or walls, but to help someone who's hurting." The blue Archon hovered beside him, its glow warm and approving. "Well said, Guardian Jack Miller. Well said indeed." As representatives from 17 different species gathered around the humans, eager to learn more about these strange Deathworlders who had earned the Archon's respect, Jack couldn't help but think of his small garage back in Iowa. He'd always been good at fixing broken machines. He never imagined that skill would help fix something much larger, the broken understanding between humanity and the stars. The little alien child tugged at his hand, pulling him toward its parents. Jack followed, ready to build the first of many new connections in a galaxy that suddenly seemed much brighter.